Well, that was a wee bit of Matt McGinn's ballad of John Maclean, which is a really good song about John Maclean. But some of you might be asking, who the hell is John Maclean? No, he's not the guy that Bruce Willis played in some crap Hollywood movie. John Maclean is actually, or should be, one of the most famous Scots in history, and I'll explain why. But unfortunately he's not. He's been kind of written out of history, but rather than analyse why he's been written out of history, maybe do that another day. Just to give you a kind of basic history of who John Maclean was. John Maclean was a Pollock Shaw's born son of a Highlander and an Islander who come down to Glasgow in the mid-19th century, and John was born in 1879, and he was a bright guy. He got himself educated by the Free Church of Scotland and was so successful that he managed to get a place at Glasgow University, which was really, really unusual at the time for someone of his background. And not only get himself a place, he was so dedicated to it that he, in order to get his degree, he sold down a full-time job. His parents had unfortunately both died, so he was supporting his siblings as well. And he literally walked from Pollokshaws every day to get to his classes at Glasgow University, which is like 5 miles away. It's like the other side of the river, for those who don't know the geography of Glasgow. It's a 5 miles there and 5 miles back, and he walked it every day, all weather, December, January, winters in Scotland, to get his degree. And he always put himself around as John Maclean MA, not to sort of boast that I've got a university degree, but to make the point that, you know, working class people were every bit as good as the toffs who ruled over them. If they were given the opportunity, they too could get a degree. In fact, not they could get a degree, a good degree against all odds. And that's the genius, part of the genius of the man. He then became a school teacher in Lorne School, which is still there in Glasgow, a wee bit more of later. But famously, he devoted himself to setting up workers' education courses, eventually ending up with the Scottish Labour College. But basically, from a very early age, in his mid-20s, he's establishing nighttime classes for workers in all sort of schools, economics in particular, which is John's specialism. And it's just amazing. I mean, it's like FE courses for free that this guy in his mid-20s is organising all over the city, but particularly in Pollokshaws. Again, more of later. He gets involved in that. He gets involved in the establishment of the co-op movement in the town, which is a big thing at the time. Obviously, it's still with us, but it was pioneering at the time. And an early supporter of women's suffrage. Very early, not a Johnny come lately. He's one of the first to support women's votes for women. He's a peace activist. He gets involved in various influent socialist movements of that time. There's so many, it's not worth mentioning as far as they keep changing their names, but he's very heavily involved. Social Democratic Federation, various other groups. And by the eve of the First World War, which is really where he makes his name, he is literally one, if not the leading far left socialist figures, not just in Britain, but throughout the world. He is undoubtedly the most leading figure in Britain, not just Scotland, and he's on a par with the Jacques Jaurès, with Lenin was a nobody in this context, but you know, Liebknecht, Karl Liebknecht, Rosa Luxemburg, you know, iconic figures who are celebrated in their countries, even the right-wing people, because they recognised they were great Germans or great whatever, Russians, or great Frenchmen. But in Scotland, it's like a bit of a blank page, you know. Even the left don't really celebrate John Maclean, despite the fact that 100 years ago, pretty much exactly, he was a serious major figure, a major thinker, and achieved, apart from that, also, as I say, got himself a degree and set up workers' education courses, and, you know, walked the walk as well as talk the talk. And then when the First World War broke out, he became almost overnight, because a lot of them folded, a lot of the leading figures just crashed and just went along with the war effort. It became almost overnight the leading figure in the British anti-war movement, the British anti-conscription movement, and he just was very effective at it, speaking all over the country, all over the UK, but obviously particularly in Glasgow where he lived, and obviously it's cause and effect, but Glasgow in terms of the number of conscientious objectors, the number of strikes and the number of anti-war activities was far and away, pro rata, miles ahead. There were more strikes in Glasgow than there were in the whole of bloody London, despite London being about 8 times the size. Glasgow was the absolute hot point, and obviously there's cause and effect, but this is the guy that's advocating it. He was highly, highly dangerous. He was imprisoned 3 or 4 times under the Defence of the Realm Act, relatively short sentences, usually in like Berlin or a local prison. I'm not saying they were great places, but at least he had some access to his family, he wasn't isolated. Until finally, in the wake of the Russian Revolution, which was in late 1917, and right in the middle of the German Spring Offensive, which was the one point in the war of 1918 that the Allies actually thought they would lose. Okay, the Allies struggled to win the war, but they never really looked like losing it, apart from early on in 1914, and then at this crucial point. And at this crucial point, the authorities have had enough. They charge him with sedition. They don't even try him in Glasgow, which would have been normal. It's too bloody incendiary. To put him on trial in Glasgow, they take him over to relatively safe Edinburgh, posh central Edinburgh, trumped up charge him with sedition, sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, really for thinking or speaking. He's done actually nothing wrong. In fact, he's done nothing wrong. He's done everything right. He's called it precisely right from the start of the war to the end of the war. A waste of bloody time. Hundreds of thousands of young boys mainly would be sent to the front, cannon fodder, and they'd end up with next to nothing. He's called it precisely right. That's what he's dangerous about, not because he's wrong, but because he's right. So he's stuck in Peterhead prison, which is really the equivalent of being sent to Siberia. Proverbially, it's the most northern, the most isolated prison in the middle of bloody nowhere. It's even brutal compared to Berlin. It's brutal by any standards. He's badly treated, and he deteriorates badly. His health deteriorates badly, his mental health deteriorates badly, his physical health, he goes on hunger strike. But meanwhile, outside, there's a massive campaign in 1918, not just in Scotland, not just in Britain, throughout the world, in America, and it was in Canada, Australia, France, for the release of John Maclean. It's massive. There's one particular demonstration in London in July 1918. Absolutely, if you look at it in the context of the First World War, Britain's at war, and live or die war against the Germans. They're looking at losing it, but still 10,000 people in London are prepared to come out and demonstrate for the release of Maclean. So obviously Maclean's a Scottish icon, but he was a huge figure. He should be being celebrated all over Britain, all over the world. But I'm not going to blame Britain or the English or the world for ignoring John Maclean when Scotland ignores him. But seeing compared to just kind of benchmarking him, he was bigger at the time. He was bigger than Lenin, bigger than James Connolly, bigger than Carl Liebknecht, bigger than Rosa Luxemburg. These people looked to Maclean. Maclean was the iconic figure for them. They were looking to him because he was a charismatic figure. He walked the walk. He was more experienced. He was bright. He had a university degree. And he was also the leader of the labour and trade union and the radical movement in the most advanced and most powerful country at the time, which was the British Empire. And all Marxist theory, indeed all theory, was that if it was going to kick off anywhere, it was going to be in the most advanced country. That didn't turn out like that. So he literally, quote the British security services at the time, the most dangerous man in Britain. That's on his file. That's their assessment, not mine, theirs. And they were right. He was. That's why they put him in jail. That's why there was a massive campaign to get him released. He was a political prisoner. And it was not just a massive campaign, it was a successful campaign. Because the authorities really felt the heat. And his health was deteriorating. They were determined that they wouldn't have another martyr on their hands, like James Connolly 2 years earlier when they shot him and he died in essentially custody of the British Empire. So the combination of factors, big campaign, the fears for his health, and finally the armistice. He got let out about they announced they were letting him out about 3 weeks after the armistice in 11th of November, and then about a week later, on the precise date, come to in a minute, 3rd December 1918, they let him out. And they let him out kind of flyily, early in the morning from Peterhead without really telling too many people. So nobody quite knows. They know he's getting out, but they don't know when. And then word comes in the early morning, he's out. The great man is coming. And he goes to Aberdeen. He gets a train from Peterhead to Aberdeen. And even at that point, with a matter of a few hours' notice, the Aberdeen Trades Council have set up a welcoming committee for him, and there's a small rally in Aberdeen round at the station. And then he boards the train, the main train. But it's not just pretty much, it's the exact same train line as it is there today. And he comes down that line. And that's with the reference in the Henley Henderson song about the great man is coming, north of the Lamela and north of the Tay. And he comes down that line, Dundee, Perth, Stirling, Glasgow. And he arrives in Glasgow's Buchanan Street station, railway station. And literally there's 100,000 people outside the station have managed to get themselves to the station to greet their hero. And then the same number again, if not more, greet him as he wanders around the streets of Glasgow in the famous John Maclean March. I mean, like 250,000 people. And this is in an area, there's no notice, it's December, it's late, it's 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night in December in Scotland, in the middle of an influenza epidemic. And they get that number, it's just phenomenal. I mean, in benchmarking terms, it's unprecedented. It never happens again any time in the history of Scotland. There's no equivalent moment that the numbers come close. And we're just about to celebrate or commemorate the 100th anniversary of it this 3rd of December. And as we speak, there is not a thing organised about it. Not a thing. Not a thing is happening in Glasgow. And that's where we come in, because we're going to organise a demo at really short notice. We know money, we know nothing. But I know enough about the folklore of John Maclean that what we're doing will speak a resonance, because just going round speaking to people, you're speaking to ordinary folk and you're telling them what they're doing, and they'll give you all this, oh, my great granddad was on that, or my uncle used to sing the song to John Maclean, oh, he's a real local hero, my mother this, my mother that, or we went to a school that John Maclean taught in, because that school's still there, Lawrence Primary, it's still there in Paisley Road West. The guy's an absolute legend. And go to Pollokshaws, which was a kind of, Pollokshaws actually wasn't technically part of Glasgow when Maclean was born, it was actually in Renfrewshire. But go to Pollokshaws, which has still got a very distinct identity to it. It's like a kind of village within, it's like a London borough, you know, it's got its own identity, its own community. He's an absolute massive guy. He's just the man, their man. So we're going to do something in Pollokshaws as well, but we're concentrating on a few things, and go to other videos, go to the website to find out what we're doing or trying to do. I'm just going to keep with the story of Maclean. Then what happens is he literally, when he gets to the station on the 3rd of December, the crowds literally follow him home, and that's a 4-5 mile walk from Buchanan Street station, right essentially straight down Buchanan Street, which at the time was a straight street, there wasn't a concert hall there, straight down there, over Jamaica Bridge, the same bridge that's still there. It's a straight line heading for basically Pollokshaws Road and all the way to his home, which is Newlands, not technically Pollokshaws at this stage. And that's the John Maclean March. But before they go on south of the river to Pollokshaws, which is another 3 or 4 miles and a fair bit out of town, as it's first to the outskirts of Glasgow, and this is like 6 o'clock at night in December in Glasgow. Before that, they go down to Carlton Place, they walk down off and they fill Carlton Place, overspill Carlton Place on the south side of the river, and there's a rally in support of John Maclean. Now at this stage, John Maclean is personally so weak, it's obviously it's a stressful day, you're let out of prison at 7 AM and you don't quite know what's going on. The guy's physically weak and he realises his own physical weakness, and they're asking him to speak and he doesn't speak because he can't speak. In fact, the only place he spoke was in Aberdeen. And I think that took it out of him. I think that was he realised his voice wasn't up to, he realised how weak he was, and he just couldn't speak. But what he did at the point in Jamaica, it's there today, the point at Jamaica, he just crosses he crosses Jamaica Bridge, and he raises a red flag from this coach that he's on. They put him on a coach, more of that in a wee minute. He's on this coach on top of it, and he speak, and he takes the red flag and waves it, and that is the moment. And that is John Maclean's return to the Clyde. He literally physically on the Clyde. He's on a bridge looking down on one bank of the Clyde with the other overneath at Carlton Place, the historic gathering place to the left, going back centuries, decades. And that John Maclean raising that flag. It's a more iconic moment historically than the famous raising of the red flag in George Square 2 months later. And frankly, the only reason it's less iconic is because nobody actually took a photograph of it. But that was Scotland's moment. That was high watermark radical movement Scotland ever, and I'm talking including today. It was never higher then, and it's never get close to it. So that's the John Maclean story, and the tragedy of the story is this: is he wasn't the same man. You know, it wasn't just he's a sore thought or he felt poorly in the day. He's basically been so badly treated with force feeding, like the suffragettes, because he went on hunger strike, and just generally the brutality of it. I mean, this stage he's almost 40, he's 39, and he's fit enough. He's a very fit guy, but in those days, 39 was definitely middle-aged, if not bordering on elderly, and it just taken its toll. And whilst he does some decent things for the next 5 years, he tragically dies at the age of 43, and I would say virtually killed by the prison. There was no evidence of ill health of Maclean before he was imprisoned in Peterhead. He survived Berlinian short sentences. He survived that with no ill effects, and it was the brutality of the. So the Brits killed him. Really, they just did it more subtly, or the war killed him. Like a lot of war casualties, they just took a few years to finish him off, and he's never reached the heights again. He even had political disagreements with various factions, particularly the Communist Party, and that's another reason that the left, the communist left, are very influential at that time, kind of wrote him out, downplayed his role because he didn't take the right line, because they wanted a British road to socialism, and John Maclean wanted a Scottish road to socialism on the ground that the Scottish working class, the Glasgow working class in particular, were far more advanced and were riper for a socialist transformation than the similar people in England would be. And sorry, John Maclean was right. He was right in so many bloody things, but they smeared the guy and said he had mental health issues, which he kind of did to a degree, but not to that degree. Everyone's got mental health issues, particularly if you've been in prison for brutally treated. So, you know, if you want, I'm not going into this now, but part of the reason he's been written out of history is not the classical, the Tories have put him down. It's his own people have put him down, or the political hacks have put him down. And even now that explains why they're doing nothing today. Why the Labour Party isn't doing something for John Maclean, God only knows. Why the SNP isn't doing something for John Maclean on this occasion, God only knows. Well, I kind of do know. He's too radical, he's too problematic for any of them. He's too socialist for the SNP and too nationalist for the Labour Party. And the Communist Party are just embarrassed, not by him, but they're just embarrassed by their treatment of him. And then you've just got all the far left groups as if I just try and sell newspapers around them, lose them as a marketing tool. Well, we're doing none of that. Believe me, just trust me. We're going to try and do them justice, and next to nothing. We'll be launching a financial appeal in a minute, not a minute, a few days. But I'm just going to stop. Try and keep it relatively short. If you want to find out more about Maclean, these are books I would recommend. This one in particular I would recommend because it's just come out. It's a guy called Henry Bell, a youngish academic, and it's a really good book. It's a wee bit leftist. I don't mean that to be critical. It's his perspective is from a lefty guy, so he's sympathetic to Maclean. Makes it a good read, but has to be cross-referenced. But it's very good. It's new. You can get it in most bookshops now. This one's 15 quid. I don't know the cover price of most of them. It cost me 15 quid. Good 15 quid. Good read. This one's a really, really good read, and it's called The Red and the Green, and it analyses Maclean's attitude towards Ireland and Scotland and the interrelationship with Connolly, the Sinn Féin movement. Now, I'm not going to be sounding sectarian, but in reality, John Maclean was a wee proddy, and most of the Sinn Féiners were Irish Catholic. We know all this. We've got this baggage still with us. Again, Maclean's mild, just totally ahead of his time. He totally rejects sectarianism. He's got no time for it. He totally champions the cause of republicanism, Irish republicanism and Scottish republicanism, and he calls that right as well. It's The Red and the Green. It's really, really interesting. I wouldn't recommend that as your first reading, Maclean. I think you need a wee bit. Henry's book's better for those who are coming at it relatively well informed, but if you're into your Irish politics and understand that era of Michael Collins, James Connolly, De Valera, this is a great book. And he's right. This is just another couple. This is just a general book in Red Clydeside. It's not specifically Maclean. It's a really good read. When the Clyde Was Red by Maggie Craig. It's good to contextualise the whole situation. And objectors and resistors, this is about the anti-war movement, the biggest anti-war movement anywhere in the world during World War One was in Glasgow and centred around Maclean. And see all these Armistice Day celebrations, which I've been happy enough to, well, not happy enough, I've taken part in, I get what they're about. But everyone's upset about the fact that all these young men tragically died in wars. What Maclean actually did is stop them, tried to stop that happening. From start to finish, he stood up against the war, against conscription, against all they stood for. So he's the absolute hero of World War One, in my opinion, because he effectively ultimately died because of World War One and because of his imprisonment in World War One. But his actual analysis of World War One, why it was started, why it was continued, what it would mean, he was absolutely correct. And that's why they jailed him. Not because he was wrong. They killed him because he was right. The most dangerous man in Britain. So there we go. That's a good book. And it looks at it from a completely... And the other thing about John Maclean was suffragette. He was one of the best supporters of the suffragettes. The women's movement. He's miles ahead of his time. He's miles ahead of his time. But where would I put him, right? If you're trying to... I'm trying to make this punter friendly, right? We've all got our heroes and we all like Scottish guys. Here's one. Kenny Dalglish. Great guy. I'm a Celtic man, but I'm also an Everton supporter, so I've mixed views on Kenny. But he is the king, no doubt about it. But I'll put my life in it, Kenny Dalglish knows about John Maclean and admires him. Somebody go and ask him. King Kenny. Good. I'll give him 5 out of 10. With a benchmark being 10. Sir Alex Ferguson. Govan born. Proddy. Brought up in more or less the same area as John Maclean. I'm not far off it. I not only do I think John Maclean is a hero, I know he is. I've heard Ferguson say how much he admires John Maclean. So Alex, speak a wee bit louder. I'll give Sir Alex 6 out of 10. Here's another one. Alex Salmon, good guy. Joined the SNP mid-70s, got heavily involved in the 79 group. You will have heard of them, a radical element. The 79 group's iconic figure was John Maclean. That was who they benchmarked themselves. Right? So, 5 for Kenny, 6 for Alex Ferguson. I'll give Alex Salmon 7. If you're wondering, it's a tough test from Septon. Here's another one. Sir Sean. Need I say any more? Great guy. Done a lot of good things. Fantastic actor. Done a lot for Scotland. But, sorry Sir Sean, and I'm sure you knows of Maclean as well, but I'll give you an 8. 8 out of 10. There we go. And there's my 9 out of 10. Robbie Burns. Because Robbie Burns really is the only, in my opinion, if you analyse it and you take your way out, he's the only guy that comes close to John Maclean in terms of achievement. But what he's got his Burns suppers. He's got an annual day dedicated to it. It's a public holiday. There's Burns clubs all over the world. He's revered right across classes. Even people that don't agree with what he's saying in his poems still admire his poetry. Kind of right-wing guys that like a man's a man for all that, which is kind of ironic, but they appreciate the power of his work. And he is the only Scot, in my opinion, that's come close to John Maclean. I mean, he's also similar, a self-made man coming through the ranks, poverty background, but ultimately, and he also dies young as well, but Robbie gets his place in history. So I'm giving him 9 out of 10, and I'm giving the man, John Maclean, 10. Shades him, because he was involved in serious politics. He walked the walk, he talked the talk, and he paid the ultimate price. He was basically crucified, martyred for his cause. The fighting Domine. So there you go. And the only other guy I'd give personally 10 out of 10 to, and here I'm stretching it, but I'm trying to make this popular, this guy. And he was ahead of his time, and he was generally speaking mocked at the time. But he's got his place in history as well. But I'll tell you why I think he's like Maclean. They both thought out the box. They weren't in silos. They were original thinkers. They thought out the box and paid a price for that as well. He was done in at 40, albeit a nutter. But he was dangerous. He was dangerous, Lenin. There were files in him, the FBI files, J. Edgar Hoover, the most dangerous man in America. I mean, the similarities are incredible, and obviously it's a different context. But he's got my 10 out of 10 as well. So that's John Maclean, not V.I. Lenin, John Lennon. So I'm trying to put him in a context, and it's disgraceful what this country's done to him. And as I say, it's no just the right wing or the Tories. The Tories they've every right to ignore John Maclean. He never supported them. Why the hell would they honour him? But why we've got a Scottish Parliament doing nothing and a Glasgow City Council doing nothing? Both controlled currently by the SNP, but being controlled by the Labour Party. I'm not putting a partisan point, I'm putting an analytical point. Because these groups should be embraced them. In fact, he's actually a point of unity between the two groups. If you look at commonality, he should be a unifying figure, not just should be, could be a unifying figure in the here and now. If you actually look at him, what he stood for. He was on that cusp. The most dangerous man in Britain, 1918. The most dangerous man in Britain, 2018. If we just actually understand what the hell the guy stood for. And that's why he's lying isolated in an obscure graveyard in the south side of Glasgow. Any other country, they'd have a mausoleum to him. There'd be busloads of tourists going back and forward every day. But we are in Scotland, somewhat different. We certainly are with John. So we're going to do our best in these coming weeks. Then we need your support. Whatever way you can. Right, thank you. I'm away. I'll leave you with a bit of Matt.